Daughter of the Moon, written by Sarah Bullock. Belle watched the woman in the dark waters below. Beneath the blanket of silver and white hair, she noticed the woman was curvaceous and naked, wearing only a cloak of silvery moonlight illuminating her from above and below. She felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. Rarely had she seen anybody but herself naked. Fighting the urge to look away, she saw her delicate wisps of hair raised like antennae towards the moonbeams above. The spidery threads creating a fine halo, framing the woman's round face. So ethereal, Belle had to rub her eyes to ensure she wasn't dreaming. The blanket of hair swayed rhythmically, following the soft curve of her back, as her arms reached out, gently waving, moving in figures of 8, back and forth, side to side in the empty space in front of her, seemingly weaving something visible only to herself. Her movements fluid like the gentle lull of the tide in which she stood. Through the moonlight, Belle could see the mouth's woman moving. Omna shola bilingetu, Omna shola bilingetu, Omna shola bilingetu, Omna shola bilingtatu. Like the breeze in the trees, the whisper of the words reached her ears. As gentle as the softest caress, they showered her with 1,000 tiny stars. Click, clack. Belle's heavy eyelids shuttered across her dry eyes. Click, clack, opening, closing like heavy sliding doors. Omna shola belingetu, Omna shola belingetu, Omna shola belingetu, Omna shola belingtatu. In contrast to the scene before her, the earth felt cold and solid. The rich, damp smell of earth reached her nose. Her breath out created a cloud in front of her, reminding her of the hour. Within the stillness and sensation, unlike anything she'd known before, filtered through her body. Warmth mixed with a tingling, a pulse, an internal deep beat in her belly, traveling into her loins and legs. Briefly, her awareness shifted from the woman, with a rasping breath catching at the back of Belle's throat. Omna shola belingetu, Omna shola belingetu, Omna shola belingetu, Omna shola belingtatu. The gossamer web of words again enveloped Belle. Butterflies tugged at her belly, a slight feeling of nausea, an invisible umbilicus pulling her towards the edge of her hiding spot. Lured, pulled, and enticed, she knew not which. She just knew more than anything she'd ever felt before. She had to move towards the ethereal being before her. Omna shola belingtetu, Omna shola belingtetu, Omna shola belingtetu, Omna shola belingtetu. Belle, come out, dear one. I've been waiting for you. Daughter of the moon, your time is here, dear one. The voice, a mere whisper, caressed her ears. It sounded like music playing just for her. A safe voice, one she somehow knew whilst not knowing. One that settled in the cave of her heart like a loving, motherling embrace. Omna shola belingtetu, Omna shola belingtetu, Omna shola belingtetu, Omna shola belling tattoo. Words floated in her head, causing her to blink more. Tremors, tugging, beat and pulse. Her head wobbled a little as she felt the warmth between her thighs, a strange, sticky feeling. Fearing she'd peed herself just a little, Belle's breath caught as she waited for the urge to go. A cold sweat formed on her face, dampness under her arms. There was no urge to pee. This feeling came from the place hidden deep within, the secret. Cautiously rising from her sit spot, she moved slowly towards the woman, wincing as the blood rushed back into her limbs, each tiny step feeling like eggshells cutting into the soles of her feet. Emerging, Belle heard that gentle whisper. "Belle, welcome. I am Luna. I've been waiting for you. Your time is here, dear one. Come. There is nothing to fear but fear itself, little woman." Little woman? No one had ever called her little woman before. She was curious. Belle moved closer. Luna continued weaving her invisible threads, edging closer still. Belle could see the woman's colour was just like the moon itself, hues of grey, silver and white. Belle was sure she'd never seen anyone so beautiful, so luminous, so like the moon she continued to face. "What do you mean?" Belle found her asking in her voice that sounded little less than a whisper. And it sounded more coarse, ugly, unlike the melodious voice of the silver, shiny creature in front of her. "Sweet woman child, your time is here." Luna made a final gesture in the air like a pointed star, and pressing her hands to her chest, bowed to the moon. She turned, smiling to face her. Pearly white teeth, each like little moons themselves, beamed at her, melting Belle's fear clean away. She could see the woman's eyes crinkle at the corners, highlighting their watery, warm brown centers. Eyes that reminded her of the seals she loved watching play off the rocks. "Welcome to womanhood, Belle, my beloved. Your time has come. You are little Belle no more. You have entered womanhood." Perplexed. "But I have not started my moon time yet." And as the words left her lips, Belle felt the cramping in her belly again, more stickiness forming at her secret. Luna smiled, nodding her head, looking down at her. "The cramping in your lower belly and the sticky feeling at your secret? That is what you've been waiting for, dear one. That is the moontime flow. Come bathe with me in the waters and see." Fear in her belly was outweighed by the discomfort of the sticky feeling between her legs. Belle really wanted to check she hadn't peed herself. She still didn't have the urge to go. Just this felt different. Warm, thick, oozing, deeply uncomfortable. She worried something was wrong with her. At the water's edge, slowly, shyly, Belle removed her clothes, hesitating when it came to her favourite yellow daisy-panted pants and matching top. "Those two," gestured Luna, emerging from the water and placing a beautiful red dress around her naked luminosity. Trusting Luna in a way she could not understand, Belle slipped out of her underwear. Taking time to fold her knickers, she stopped, body frozen. Eyes wide, she looked at Luna. For in the center of her favorite underwear was a small patch of bright red blood. The corners of her mouth raised towards the moon as she realized, yes, finally her time had come. At last she was little Belle no longer. She too was a daughter of the moon. one of those she had only heard about in stories told around the village fire. "Belle, your time is here," Luna said in her melodic voice. "This is the time where you become a woman. Not in age or maturity, no, but in the old ways, the ways of the cycles of the moon. You have crossed the first major threshold of what it is to become a woman. There is enough to learn about, and enough time, and enough to learn about all the magic that comes with the gift of this threshold of menarche. For now, it is enough to know this. You are of an age that if you should wish, you can have children. Many moons ago, and still in some countries, you'd be sent out to marriage at this age. Here, we rejoice in the beauty, playfulness, and joy of maidenhood. We celebrate the gifts of learning the tides and the cycles of the moon, whilst also allowing ourselves to deepen our connection to her sister, the earth, to listen to the wisdom of both. We dedicate ourselves to the goddess. We learn who we are in ourselves. We begin to understand our heart and soul song, our purpose in the world. We begin to deepen into the magic of what it is to be a woman through all the women, including our ancestors, the grandmothers. We learn from the stories of old, and nature herself shows us. This blood is the seed of your womb. This blood that leaves our bodies enriches the earth as we offer it to her as a blessing. We bleed because we are alive. We are women, and we are the creatrix of the earth. We are cyclical beings. As we bleed, we shed. As we release, so does the moon and the earth. You have seen the moon wane and wax. You know the seasons of the earth cycle, how the trees release their leaves so they can grow anew in spring. Both these elements are feminine. They are our teachers. You know this deep in your bones, as your mother was a magical woman too. Mother. At that word, Belle felt herself flinch, snapping out from her soft gaze and enraptured listening. She missed her mother. The familiar stab of pain and loss yanked at her heart. There was a deep longing to know the warm embrace, the guidance of a mother at this pivotal point in her life. Belle felt hot tears prick at the back of her eyes, threatening to spill down her cool cheeks. Belle, I know this is hard for you, my love. Please know I'm here to help you. You are the reason I have returned. These are the ways of our people, our women. Much has been lost from our traditions. This is why I'm here to teach you, dear Belle. You are one that carries a special message for these times. As you grow, you will learn these gifts and in turn share them with others. I am not here to tell you what they are, more to be your friend, your helper and teacher in these ways. I am here to speak with you about your mother, who was a dear friend of mine. Before she left this mortal plane, she asked me to look out for you and come when it was your time. So here I am. Losing control of her tears, they sprung forth from her sore eyes like hot lava scalding her cheeks. Her heart ripped open, raw, exposed. The cracks of loss and tears of loneliness seared her young, tender body. The deep longing to belong, to be held in the arms of a caring, loving mother lay at the core. Luna stepped forward, and Belle felt the soft silk and the warmth of her body wrap her in the deepest, most loving embrace she'd ever known. Luna's hair covered them both, tickling Belle's back and face. She didn't mind. It felt so good to be held. This is what love must feel like. Feeling safe, Belle released the pent-up pain and tears she'd been holding for so very long. She let herself be held as the sobs racked her body, each one sending fresh rivers of tears falling from her eyes. Luna gently rocked her, crooning soft words into the air around her. Words felt like feathers easing her broken heart. After what felt like a lifetime, Belle's tears eased, but she did not want to leave the loving embrace. Her face wet and hot in contrast to a cool, and she remembered naked body, burnt even more as she looked around for her clothes. In the moonlight, Belle saw a stream of bright blood trickling down her leg. Exhausted, she wanted the earth to open up and swallow her. Not knowing where to look or what to do, she began to weep again, the shame feeling overwhelming. There is nothing to be embarrassed about, dear one. This is sacred blood. Come, wash yourselves in the waters of the sea. Luna's lyrical voice eased her anxious tears and belly. The moonlit water felt refreshing as silky as Belle entered. Stooping to wash the blood from her leg and between her thighs, her fingers stopped at the place other than where she peed, her secret, an entry into her body. The place she'd occasionally felt a throb and drawn to, touch because it felt nice, was sticky, heavy with blood. She looked at her fingers. How can I bleed but not die, nor it be painful? She thought to herself, mesmerized. Remembering Luna, she swished herself clean. In the distance, Belle became aware of many voices joining together in an upbeat melody, singing with harmonies. Luna handed her a gown of deep red, a miniature version to the one she was wearing. Pulling it over her head, a honey glow began to emerge from the direction of her village. The singing became louder, and she could make out a group of women coming towards them, women of all ages. Each woman carried candles, flowers, bags, and bundles, all singing with joyous enthusiasm. Belle felt Luna stand beside her. She could feel the woman smiling. When she smiled, she became even more luminous, shining brighter than before. Her tender heart felt warm, cared for, safe. She stood watching the women, each dressed in all shades of red, drawing closer. The singing fading away to a gentle hum as they came forming a circle around them. Belle looked at Luna, but before she could ask her question, Luna, without moving, said so faintly she thought she'd imagined it, "Trust. Just watch." Looking around her, she saw both familiar and unfamiliar faces, smiling at her in the candlelight. The sound of the hum filled the air as though a million bees danced in the darkened skies. The sound soothed her soul, igniting her heart. As they continued to hum, one by one, the women approached her, uttering words she was unable to decipher, and left something at her feet. Oatcakes, lengths of cloth, flowers, pots of ointment and oils, fruit, pens, paper, ink, stones, necklaces of semi-precious stones, to name a few. Such richness in the gifts, each one given with such thought and love. Watching with eyes as wide as the moon, she waited until the last woman came towards her. Belle recognized this woman as the wise woman, the grandmother of the village, the one some spoke of in less than kindly tones, calling her a witch or a hag. Stooped in a posture, long light white hair hid her face from Belle. Belle found herself pulling back, inching away, until she felt the gentle, reassuring hand of Luna on the small of her back. She stopped, breathed, and waited. Inching her way forward, the grandmother approached Belle, picking her way through the gifts, humming until she stopped just in front of her, closer than anyone else had ventured. The warm aroma of wood smoke, wool, lavender, cinnamon and rose reached her nose as the old woman lifted her head. Oceans so blue they met the sky, met Belle's eyes so mesmerizing, twinkling like stars. The grandmother appeared almost a young maiden herself. Finding herself smiling for only the second time that evening, Belle felt herself full of warmth and love. These eyes seemed to be searching her for the heartbeat of her soul. Everything else around her faded. Softening, she felt light, floating in the evening sky amongst the stars as the humming around her rose and fell. She felt wings on her back as her body welcomed the images that swam before her eyes. Images of bees swarming together, going from flower to flower, collecting pollen. Images of salmon laying eggs in fast-flowing rivers. Of swans flying high above, calling out below. The whisper of giant oaks as they flew over, calling to her to come sit with him, to know the ways of men. Two serpents joined together with wings and silver tongue. Image after image, sensation after sensation. She felt she was being gifted the messages from the earth and the stars above. She was the earth and the stars above. All became one as she floated and flew with the old woman, with her laughing loudly as the humming rose and rose, creating warm thermals for them to fly. They flew through the air, the sound of the wolves joining the humming, their deep howl, the call of the pack, the wild crescendo of sound. She was alive. The images began to fade as the taste of salt shifted her senses. The aching in her loins brought her back to her feet on the cool earth, the gentle heat of Luna's hand on her back. She had a sense to take the tears and rub them on her heart and on her belly where the deep ache came and her bleed felt heavy. The pain eased and softened as she did so. The grandmother nodded with an affirming smile. Belle, daughter of Lyneth. The old woman's rich voice rang out in the silence of the night. Your destiny is clear and strong, dear one. You are of the lineage of the old ways. You are one of the granddaughters of the moon, my sister, part of my clan. Will you join us? Will you come live in the village with us? Us, the priestesses of the old ways, to learn the laws of nature, the alchemical ways of this sacred vessel of the goddess. This is a rare path your soul has chosen for one so young. Yet you are ready. What say you, Belle, daughter of Lilith, granddaughter of the moon? Will you join us? Belle looked around at the red-robed women surrounding her and up into the beloved face of Luna shining down at her. Deep in her belly, a fire arose. Her heart ignited, and she knew this was her path, to become a priestess of the moon, to honor the earth and listen to the old ways, to allow them to become the new and current ways. to honour her body and being in this life as a sacred vessel, to come home and belong. Yes, grandmother, yes, I will join you. Finally, a place she could belong.